Good morning. This is the Great Basin Smoke Dispersion Briefing for Friday, February 8th. Looking at precipitation over the past 7 days, quite a bit of it across the Sierra, 4 to 6 inches of rain and even more so. Green here indicates anywhere from a half inch to an inch and a half of rain with locally higher amounts across all of the mountainous regions of the Intermountain West, even down into Arizona. You can see on the right-hand side in terms of percent of normal, the purple shades indicating anywhere from 300 to 600% of normal for just about most areas except for a few secluded valleys. So overall, a very wet week, continuing with a very fairly wet winter across most locations. Snowfall in the past 72 hours, heaviest was across the mountains of Utah, where amounts up to 2 to 3 feet, even higher amounts have occurred. Lesser amounts across the Sierra, but of course they had their heavy snow previously. So on the right-hand side, you can see the snowpack in the purple here across the high Sierra indicates anywhere from 50 to 100 inches of snowpack. Similar amounts across the higher terrain of Utah, western Wyoming, and into the higher terrain of Idaho as well, and some of the higher slopes of northern Nevada also getting in between 1 to 3 feet of snow cover in those areas. So burning in higher terrain right now will be fairly difficult. Pile burning in the higher elevations probably most favorable. As for the weather, today the infrared satellite imagery shows deep low pressure off the central California coast, wrapping itself up with some moisture and pulling in some tropical moisture from off the Baja coast. This will combine into our next storm for much of the west for this coming weekend into early next week. We see that for later this afternoon. There's that deep low pressure actually shifting a bit further northward into southern Oregon, but still bringing lots of precipitation cloud cover to the northern central portions of the Great Basin. Dispersion overall, very few areas in the purple, so dispersion overall looks pretty good. In terms of transport winds, primarily coming out of the south and southwest, you see some of those in intensified colors in the reddish shades going up to 30 to 40 knots. Some of the valleys across Utah will be sheltered from the wind somewhat, but once you get into the mid to upper slopes, you will feel them, especially going up into northern Nevada, into parts of Idaho, and into western Wyoming. Mixing heights generally a couple thousand feet above ground level. The exceptions may be a narrow strip across northern Nevada. Now for Saturday, low pressure over central Idaho starts weakening a little bit, but still the moisture in place across Nevada, Utah, western Wyoming. Areas in white indicate great overall dispersion. And looking through here, on Sunday, there's a storm system still influencing northern Nevada, northern Utah, just about all of Idaho and western Wyoming as that next storm system drops down off the Washington coast. Areas in white here indicate strong southerly winds and good overall smoke transport. Very strong transport winds here. You can see the brown shades indicate gusts actually off the scale, but probably over 50 to 55 miles per hour at the transport level. Vertical mixing also very good in many areas. Now the Utah Clearing Index, which good indices are on the reddish to orange shades, poor dispersion in the purplish to blue, indicates a general improvement from Friday to Saturday and Sunday as the storm system pushes on through. Looking at 3-day precipitation accumulation, significant across the Sierra front, moderate precipitation amounts of a quarter to a half inch, and locally higher amounts across northern Nevada, the higher terrain of Utah and Wyoming and Idaho. So another wet period coming up. On Monday, there's that next storm system here on the left dropping down into the Pacific Northwest. More precipitation for the Sierra front, northern Nevada into Idaho and western Wyoming. Look at that really good dispersion across most of the area in white. On Tuesday, moisture moves back into a good chunk of Utah and Nevada and Idaho, basically across the whole Great Basin. Again, excellent dispersion. Main transport flow will be out of the south and southwest. Looks like a little break in the precipitation as it moves out, but still not under any strong high pressure ridge, so good dispersion overall with west-southwest flow on Wednesday. Thursday, flow becomes a bit more northwesterly. Next storm system, a drier one, pushes out of Pacific Northwest, may influence parts of Idaho with some light precipitation into western Wyoming, but nothing too significant. Dispersion, not as perfect, but still decent across most areas in the white or yellow. Precipitation accumulation, days 4 and 5. Those will be basically Wednesday afternoon, actually Monday afternoon through Wednesday afternoon. And again, just some lighter amounts across the higher terrain of the Great Basin, locally moderate amounts across the mountains of Idaho. Now, the longer range 8 to 14, the outlook shows a continuation of that cooler than normal temperature expectation across the Great Basin, especially northern areas. Wetter than normal across the whole area, especially this area in this darkest green through here, which covers most of Nevada, the Arizona Strip, and most of Utah. Some really high chances of above normal precipitation as we go from February 15th through the 21st. And this concludes our briefing. Have a great day.